yours.
Fun to watch.
Minus 15.
Respect all, fear none.
Into the upper deck.
Intensity is not a curfew.
Oh, mercy.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
As the club announced yesterday, we have officially signed Adley Rutschman, and he's ready to start his Orioles career. He's going to be taking batting practice with the team today, and we're very delighted to add this type of talent, this type of person to this organization.
From inside the warehouse at Oriole Park at Camden Yards, it is the MASN All Access Podcast. Paul Mancano and Bobby Blanco here with you, and that which you just heard was the Orioles' future being revealed to the public. The curtain being pulled
unveiled
back,
to the world.
unveiled
in the eyes of God.
The bright shining star that is Adley Rutschman being introduced by Mike Elias in his press conference on Monday. Was it Monday? Tuesday?
It was Tuesday.
That was Tuesday.
Long week already.
Long
That was
week.
a long day.
Two draft picks, two top draft picks getting signed in a week. Adley Rutschman, of course, the number 1 overall pick, introduced as a member of the Baltimore Orioles organization. Big-time day. And the past and present of the Orioles organization crossing paths, Bobby.
Yeah, on the same day. A lot of conspiracy theories going out there that Mike Elias did this on purpose. I don't really buy that because that's way too hard to. That's way too much forethought. Yeah. Adley Rutschman being introduced, signing the night before. Manny Machado returning to Opaki.
As conspiracy theories go, that's one of the lamer ones I've heard.
Yeah, it's like, okay, even if he did, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. Also Opaki. I always say Opasi.
Opasi? Camden.
I say it as a soft C. Yeah, it probably is. But that's like
Opasi.
GIF. It's like GIF. It should be GIF, but we say GIF.
No, but a G makes a graphic.
Isn't it a
graphic?
Oh, it's graphic. I thought it was generated. I don't know.
Oh, I thought it was graphic. Yeah. Anyway, I always say GIF is peanut butter. Anyway, Manny Machado being introduced, fans giving him a warm welcome, as they should have. No booze, which is nice. No booze, radio people. And
that was subtle.
And Adley Rutschman making the rounds. I mean, he did everything Tuesday. He obviously the press conference. He took BP with the team. He talked to Jim Hunter on MASN. He talked to Steve Molesky on the side. He joined the MASN broadcast. I'm sure he did the radio broadcast on the field during the game. I mean, he was touted around town.
They really rolled out the orange carpet for him, which as they should, because we talked about the draft being maybe the most important night of the season. This was, obviously, it was a foregone conclusion that this was going to happen, but in terms of pomp and circumstance, one of the bigger days of the season, because opening day, obviously this team's not going to be a playoff team, so you're not going to have that kind of thing happening at the ballpark. So for something like this to go on, you got to make the most of it. This is when you invite every member of the media. This is when you really bring this kid around town. I totally agree that he got the attention, and this day got the attention that it deserved.
Yeah, I don't think that it hurt in terms of people coming out to the ballpark, that it was the day on the calendar that Manny Machado was returning. I think people had bought tickets well in advance. I know I had friends that did so in order to see Manny come back to Camden Yards. But that also might have been kind of the point. I mean, it's like, hey, we have a lot of people coming to see Manny. Let's also show them our future in Adley. And he was every bit as great as he was made out to be. You know, he was well composed, very thoughtful, very you could feel the leadership mature. You could feel the leadership kind of oozing off him. Like this guy definitely was the captain of his baseball team and is active in his community, and is going to be a great piece for this team's future.
And I will say one more note about Machado is that day could have been, if Manny Machado returned to the team in like July or say April or something, that day could have been a whole lot sadder because he hit a home run against them, and it's like you see the past that was, and that's a little sad. But this was a perfect opportunity to turn the page and look towards the future.
And that's kind of where that conspiracy theory comes. It's like, oh well, let's downplay Manny because of how that ended, but then let's pump up Adley.
I think it was a little bit of Orioles magic.
Yeah,
Just,
it was.
being
Everyone's
sprinkled
going
upon.
madly for Adley.
Madly for Adley. We already have a podcast of that name. Yeah, we're going to hear from Adley and Mike Elias during that introductory press conference, a heck of a long press conference on Tuesday. We're also going to talk about Trey Mancini and Hanser Alberto and why they have been stat standouts so far this season for the Orioles. And then to wrap it all up, we've got Kevin Brown of the Orioles Radio Network, not that Kevin Brown. He's going to be joining us to do a little fun game called In a Pickle. We're going to pepper him with some questions. But first, let's go back to Adley, the man of the hour. He had never really been to Baltimore. He's a West Coast kid. Didn't grow up an Orioles fan. Grew up a fan of the West Coast teams and didn't know a whole lot about the Orioles in terms of, the history of the organization. That will soon change.
Yep.
But he sounded pretty impressed with what he had seen so far of the city and the team and the Oriole Park at Camden Yards in his few hours that he has already been here.
I've had the opportunity yesterday to walk around the stadium, meet some of the fans, and it's a special thing here, and it's a special history. And just to be a part of that and a part of the building process that is going on right now, I'm truly humbled to be a part of that.
Once again, saying and doing all the right things.
Just always saying the correct things, and that's what you want to see from a number one draft pick. Mike Elias has said, I think it was either post-draft, definitely post-draft, but it was right after or even a couple days afterwards, saying the tipping point for us in drafting him number one overall was also the character, the person we're getting here, because his numbers speak for himself. What he can do behind the plate speaks for himself. All his play is lived up to the hype, but the person has also lived up to the said hype, if not surpassed it. So it was impressive to see Adley, in person, showing off that character and that personality that he has, and in a big day too, with the spotlight on him. You can tell he not quite yet is liking the spotlight. He's
a little shy.
He's a little
Just
shy.
a tiny bit.
I was also going to say humble.
Yeah.
But
very.
but he enjoyed himself, and he was ready to meet the masses in terms of both the media and the Oriole faithful here.
Well, and you got a good taste, I think, of the contrast between a high school kid and a college kid.
That's true.
When we saw Gunnar Henderson the next day, Gunnar Henderson did an awesome job, considering he's 17 years old.
Right.
Did a great job answering questions and being forthcoming and answering questions the right way. But you can just tell that Adley has done this more than a few times.
Right.
He's been on the national spotlight in terms of the College World Series. Steve Molesky asked, because Adley has gotten these exact questions, a lot of them, over the past several months, pretty much because he was on the radar as the number one overall
pick. If not the past year.
Yeah. So stuff like, the basic stuff like, how does it feel? What were your emotions like? How much did you contact?
Were you expecting it?
Yeah. Stuff like that. And Steve asked a more intricate question about catching, and you could tell Adley was kind of like, yeah. He said, it's a good question. So he's already in the mode that professional athletes are, where they already have a few canned responses. They at least know they have practice in answering certain types of questions. Right. But when they get a question that actually makes them really think about what they're saying, then they appreciate it.
Kind of like the Bull Durham thing. Just give him the paper answer.
Yes.
But also, you can tell he's kind of sick about talking about himself. He wants to talk about baseball. He wants to get going. He wants to start playing and talking about what he can do on the field.
Yeah.
And he even said, what I thought was interesting was a lot of the questions. I think this was a Steve question as well, was, how do you feel comfortable? How comfortable do you feel calling pitches?
Right.
Because a lot of colleges, the pitching coach calls the pitches, relays it to the catcher to relay to the pitcher. But at Oregon State, the more familiar they got with Adley and the more experience Adley got behind the plate and with his staff, the more freedom he had to call his own pitches.
Yeah.
And he thought that was super interesting. And he liked that freedom and going back and watching the tape and be like, all right, why did we pitch this guy this way? And so, it's cool that he's ready to be all in on baseball, not just, I'm the number one overall draft pick. Let's talk about, that's over now. Let's talk about on the field.
Yeah, it's a guy who,
moving forward.
It's such a cliche to be like, he loves the game,
but
he does. You can tell this is his priority. This is, he is not, I'm sure he said something about, what he's going to do with his first paycheck, because he got, quite a big bonus in terms of signing that first contract. Yeah, reportedly, in terms of signing that first contract. And he said, I'm pretty happy with my Honda Civic.
Yeah.
Which, that says so much about, where his priorities lie.
It's almost like he doesn't want to like, oh, I have the money now, I'm going to spend it. He's like, no, I'm going to go make sure I earn this. Yeah. I'm going to earn this money because I want to get to Gulf Coast, start working out immediately, and then maybe play some minor league baseball later this summer.
So in terms of where he's starting, he is going to start with the Gulf Coast Orioles, which, some people, I mean, if you look at even like the previous regime, a guy like Caden Grenier went immediately to Aberdeen. Right. Automatically skip past Gulf Coast, skip past, or he went to Delmarva rather, past Aberdeen.
Yep.
So, that's skipping 2 levels at that point and going directly. And you might look at a guy who is 21 years old, has already played in the highest level of college baseball in the College World Series, and say this guy is ready for the next level. But Mike Elias wants to start at the very bottom, and he gave his reasoning for that during the press conference on Tuesday.
I think we'll let his play determine how fast he moves. Every player's different. Every first-round pick's different. And certainly, we don't need to start him there if we don't want to. But I always believe in, starting players, when in doubt, starting them at the lower level because it's very easy to transfer them if they're performing well.
Starting from the bottom, now we hear.
Yeah.
That's what Adley hopes to be saying in a couple of years. He's starting from the very bottom.
This was like the first question as soon as he was drafted, because remember, Paul, we talked about some of the reports being like, as soon as Adley Rutschman is drafted, he's immediately in the top 10 to 15 range in terms of all of baseball prospects. And then he's immediately the top prospects within the Orioles and could be an above average minor league, maybe even major league catcher at this point right now. He's still a raw 21-year-old straight out of college. So everyone's wondering where the Orioles are going to start him. I think it's smart. I think it's a little surprising, but I also think it's smart. I get the reasoning that Mike Elias gave of starting him at Gulf Coast, down in Sarasota, get him familiar with the facilities, the training staff, get back into game shape. Oregon State had an early exit, so he hasn't been in a game situation in well over a month now. So get his feet back, and his strength and his body ready, and then game situations, move up to Aberdeen, and then move up to wherever he may be. If his play dictates that he deserves to be higher, he'll get there. But it's easier to work your way up this system than start too high and then have to go back down and then go back up. That's just too much on a young person.
And I'm glad you mentioned the hype around this kid and, him being the idea of him being pro ready.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a term that I think we can throw around. It gets thrown around a ton in terms of basketball and some in terms of football of like, you can plug and play this guy day one.
Right.
That is never the case in baseball.
It's so hard to do.
And, maybe the fans who were watching him take BP with the Orioles and seeing him launch balls over the fence and launch a ball onto Utah Street, that can conjure up visions of him being on the Orioles in a short amount of time, or getting an early high call up to the higher levels of the minor league system. But it's just so hard. I mean, It is every single prospect has to work his way up through the big leagues. He has to spend, in this day and age, it's at least a year in the minor league system, no matter what age of his development you get him. Bryce Harper's had to spend months down in the minor leagues. Steven Strasburg, another number 1 overall pick, had to spend months down in the minor leagues before he was brought up to the team. So it doesn't matter where these kids are in their development. If you plug them into obviously no one's calling for this, but if you plug him into the Orioles lineup day one, he's going to strike out 4 times. It just takes development for these kids.
Well, it also, and I think Brandon Hyde referenced this on his Tuesday pregame press conference after Adley's introduction, being like, we kind of went through this with Chris Bryant in the Cubs, where he was drafted and he was quote unquote, game ready. They could have plugged and played him right away, obviously there's some contract things going along in terms of service time, stuff like that. But they were like, hey, let's just let his play dictate. We can't just go off of scouts reports and what the media is saying about this guy. Let's get our own evaluation of him. Let's let him dictate where he plays, and when he's ready, he's ready. He'll play when he's ready, and there's no need to rush him right now. It's easy to say the Orioles aren't going anywhere this season. There's literally no reason to play him in Baltimore. And in 2019, maybe even 2020.
Yeah, and obviously Adley Rutschman is a confident guy, and I think everybody got that view of him when they saw him at the press conference. But what better way to build up a guy's confidence than to have him succeed immediately the second he starts as a professional?
Right.
I
think you and I both kind of agree, no doubt that he's going to fly through the system.
Yeah.
Like, he will show that he could make it to Frederick this. I mean, and he could help Delmarva and their playoff run this season. And I think he will. He can make it as high as Frederick if he wanted to this season. If the Orioles wanted to push him that far, whether or not they will remains to be seen. But I think he's definitely has the ability to make it that high that quickly. But again, no need to rush him. Let's just start him low. There's no need to get him talk about Bowie. None of that. That's so unnecessary at this point.
Exactly. What was kind of fueling the discussion about him being a major league ready prospect was mostly about his catching, because his catching abilities are already, some have said, on a almost major league level, which is ridiculous to say at this point. But that's the kind of hype that is built around him defensively. And one of the questions coming into the press conference was, obviously, he was drafted as a catcher, but how much of his future do the Orioles have planned out for him behind the plate? And how much is he going to play behind the plate throughout the minor league system? So here's what Adley had to say about how catching and being behind the plate, that defensive position, is important to him.
It started with my dad. He was a catcher back in the day, believe it or not. But, I think it's a big part of me just from the standpoint of the control you have behind the plate, the ability to affect so many individuals around you, handle a pitching staff, being able to command the field. And for me, that's a position I enjoy because I'm able to have that influence on others and, be a hopeful leader on the team. So for me, it's a great position to be in, and I really enjoy it.
The kid is a leader. Anytime you hear somebody talk about them wanting to influence their teammates around them and have an impact on their teammates at an early level on the field, that shows a lot of leadership.
It's the maturity that we talked about. He's he wants to play. He just he likes that leadership. He gravitated toward that leadership position. He likes the ability to affect the pitching staff, affect the defensive alignments, obviously the offense with his bat. But he is. I thought it was impressive that he's the one that brought it up. Kind of like, no, I like being the leader. I want to assume that role and take charge of a clubhouse and have teammates and be the guy. They even brought up his routine at Oregon State of going up to the pitcher after every inning and talking about what, not a lot of pitchers like that, but and we talked about Dan Connolly's great piece in The Athletic when he went to go visit Adley. But pitchers are like, hey, if there's ever a guy you want talking to you while you're walking off the mound, it's Adley Rutschman, because he's just so smart and such a great leader that you want to hear his opinions and his thoughts, and he's so encouraging as a catcher that it shows a lot to have that confidence from a guy like Adley. And I think that's some great maturity from him, that he was the one to bring that up on his own in his press conference on his big day.
I think it's safe to say Adley aced his first Orioles test.
Easily
aced it.
With flying colors.
And now he will kind of disappear into the Orioles organization for a while.
Yeah.
We'll, we will obviously hear from him periodically, but let's turn our attention now to the team on the field.
All right.
Let's talk about Trey Mancini. Obviously, the guy is still crushing it. For all the haters and doubters that thought that his early season, offensive explosion was a little bit of a fluke, you have been proved wrong.
Yeah.
And Trey Mancini has been ridiculously good in first innings, particularly. Some of his stats, this was dug up by intern Brendan. In the first inning of games, Trey Mancini is batting .429 with 8 homers, 1.382 OPS, and a slugging of .889.
Yeah.
That's absurd.
That's crazy. And obviously this is due to him playing, or batting, I should say, more higher in the batting order. I mean, he hasn't batted lower than third, I think since like April. He's hitting second a lot, which is helpful because I think even the past week or so, and probably further back, but I just remember the past at least the past week, because I've been on social shifts for MASN covering the Orioles games. Early rallies started by Trey Mancini. It's starting by whoever's on the leadoff getting on base, and then Trey driving him in. I mean, the 8 homers in the first inning is impressive. Like, that's a great way to start, especially when you're on the road. You get to that pitcher early, shake him when he's in his home ballpark.
Yeah.
That's a great way to start the game. Now, whether these turns out into wins or losses, yada, yada, whatever. The fact of the matter is Trey Mancini is a lethal bat to have at the top of your lineup.
Yeah.
And early on in games.
And this next stat kind of shows how important he is to Orioles wins, but also that it's not a situation of a good stats, bad team kind of thing where he's just getting, he's
just racking up the numbers because the rest of the team is bad.
Yeah.
Right.
Because, because, if games are blowouts, then, they throw their scrap pitcher and he just rakes off them in the 7th and 8th inning. In Orioles wins, Trey Mancini is batting .337 with a .935 OPS. And that also speaks to the fact that when he goes, the whole team goes.
Yeah. I mean, it's not as far to say he's carrying the team. Mm-hmm. I think we're seeing productivity from other places, and especially on the offensive side of the ball. Too much to say that, all right, yeah, Trey Mancini is carrying this team, but it is kind of like he's definitely the leader. He's definitely the guy, the catalyst. He's, like we just talked about in the first inning, he's a jump start. If he is getting on base or driving in runs early, the rest of the offense will follow, and then the Orioles can put away a team or at least score higher. I think what we know now for this Orioles team, the offense hasn't really been that much of an issue. I mean, they are able to score in bunches and in a different way. We talked about not just long ball, in a different way, which is a great sign. It's kind of the pitching that's holding them down, giving up so many home runs, giving up big leads or giving up early big leads, so that's insurmountable. But the way Trey Mancini is able to perform, I think often correlates, like these numbers just show, correlates to wins for the O's.
And he's doing it in a clutch spot. He's batting .324 with 2 outs in the innings, and another impressive stat from him. Hanser Alberto, another guy who has been those two have been fighting for the Orioles batting title of the season.
Yeah,
we're going to ask Kevin Brown about that in a little bit in a pickle. But Hanser Alberto, never a guy known in his limited big league career before he came to the Orioles, never had a high batting average of any kind. All of a sudden, this season, he is figuring out how to get on base, and he doesn't walk a whole lot, so he's getting a ton of singles. He is batting against lefties. He is it's 41 games, so that's a pretty large sample size. He's batting .411 with a .946 OPS, 6 doubles, and 44 hits in those 41 games.
Yeah.
He's getting on base.
Yeah.
It is. We just keep waiting for his batting average to dip. Like we saw certain guys at the beginning of the season. Like unfortunately, Dwight Smith's batting average is starting to drip down towards the mean. Hanser Alberto continues to hit.
Yeah, and we've discussed how he's found his like little niche and placement at the top of the lineup, batting first. When he's batting first, which he has more than any other position by far, 21 games.
Yeah.
He's got a .387 on base percentage, which is by far the best versus any other position that he's batted more than once.
Yeah.
He's batted second once and had a good game, had a 2-hit game. But anyways, the point of the matter, he has found his spot at the top of the order. And so, you talk about your two guys battling for the team's batting average title, 1-2. There you go. That's how you start rallies. That's how you score early in games. And Brandon Hyde knows this. And this is why we're seeing Hanser Alberto in the 1 spot, Trey Mancini so often in the 2, maybe 3 spot, and everyone else follows. With these guys getting on base and driving in runs, hopefully the Orioles are able to, because like I just said, the Orioles are probably going to have to outscore opponents more often than not. They can't really rely on this pitching staff at the moment. And Michael Elias has mentioned, hey, we need to go find pitching because they want to win now. I mean, they're not going to chase a title, but they still want to win ball games.
Right.
And it's just a hard market to find pitching right now because we're getting that time of year where everyone's looking for pitching. Yeah. So this offense,
starting pitching is the hardest thing to find at the deadline,
and injury to Josh Rogers, that doesn't look great. A lot of other guys
John Means on
suffering.
the DL, IL.
Hopefully coming back tomorrow.
Yep.
To start the series against Cleveland.
DFAing, Dan Straley.
Yeah, but regardless of the fact, offense is going to need to carry this team from now on, and it's good to see that your 1-2 guys are carrying the offense to start.
A couple other splits to throw at you about Hanser Alberto. He's batting .356 in the month of June. He's batting .353 on the road. His .315 average is 6th in all of baseball. He's batting .615 in 26 counts that are 1-0. He's batting .462 in tie games, which is pretty crazy.
It's kind of crazy. So very bizarre, and kudos to intern Brendan for finding this. He was like, I'm just going to find the weirdest stats we can on Hanser Alberto and Trey Mancini.
Baseball
615 in 1-0 counts, and not a small sample size, 26 counts. So he's taking his pitches too. He's not just going up there hacking and hopefully to find a hole in the defense. No, he's smart, pensive at bats coming from both of these guys at top of the order. I mean, if you're going to wear down a pitcher, you got to take pitches. You can't just go up there and expect to hit a home run every single time. You got to wear these guys down, draw your walks, get on base, and hopefully the guys behind you can draw you in.
Well, I think that's something Trey Mancini has learned a little bit too this year because his walk rate is a little bit higher this year. And he's still an aggressive hitter, but earlier in his career, he was even more aggressive and he would chase some pitches. But the idea behind it also is, you don't have to swing at every strike. Get your pitch.
Yeah.
If you see a good pitch that's going to be a strike, you don't have to swing at it.
Right.
Just because it's, if it's not in your wheelhouse, if it's not in an area where you can crush it, then, just don't swing at it. So you have to see pitches to be able to determine, one, what a guy has, and two, to get your best pitch.
It's like kind of funny. Like it's always like people joke, oh, every time I look up, he's on base. But almost literally every time you look up, you feel like Hans Alberto or Trey Mancini is on base or recording an RBI, and that's a great sign for the top of his lineup that's going to need to score runs.
Definitely. And as the Orioles were home this weekend, are going to be home this weekend as well, Kevin Brown has been in town, the Orioles radio broadcaster. He's calling these games this week, and we had a chance to sit down with Kevin Brown in his radio broadcast booth to play a little game of In a Pickle. Put him right in the middle. We ask questions on either side. Take a look. We are in a pickle right now. Kevin Brown, you are actually in the pickle. Who's a radio broadcaster. Are you prepared to be peppered with questions?
I feel cramped.
Gonna get peppered.
This is a kind of a small booth.
Isn't pepper banned now from baseball fields?
Nicole definitely bans it here. She hates pepper.
Really?
So many baseball. No, not playing pepper. We're gonna get peppered.
What a pickled pepper.
And pickled pepper.
Is Peter Piper available?
Yeah. You were the backup for Peter.
You'll be reported to the appropriate authorities for this mess.
Fair. All right. First question.
You have to use phones. You get to memorize these. Do your work.
Kidding me? I mean, come on.
Just down the list.
Down the list.
We have the technology. Let's use the technology.
All right. Who will have the higher batting average at season's end? Trey Mancini or Hanser Alberto?
Trey Mancini.
Okay.
Do I have to explain why?
Yes, sure.
This seems like a long pickle. Trey Mancini because I just think he's a better overall player. There was no disrespect to Hanser Alberto. We think we have a little bit of a longer track record with Trey.
We do.
So I have more confidence with him.
All right.
Do you think Ryan Mountcastle will make his MLB debut this year?
Yes, I do.
When is that going to be?
September, I'll say. I don't think they're going to rush him, but I think if he continues to have a solid enough season, there's really not much to lose by adding him to the roster at the end of the year and giving him a shot.
Good call. How many Orioles players will be dealt before the trade deadline? It's a toughie.
It's a tough one. Kind of should throw a dart at the board.
Yeah.
Three.
Okay.
Lucky number. All right. What's the weirdest sport you've called in your illustrious career as a broadcaster?
The
maybe the weirdest game
I've called. I don't want to insult certain sports.
Right.
There are sports I don't understand. I have called Japanese League Baseball off of a monitor at 5 in the morning from a studio in Stamford, Connecticut.
Okay.
Which is not an insult to the Japanese style of play, simply to say that was a weird situation.
Yeah.
In a tiny booth at 5 a.m. watching
on TV
players hit home runs in the Tokyo Dome and then be handed stuffed teddy bears and stuffed cheeseburgers after they hit a home run.
Is that how it works?
Yes.
Wow.
You hit a home run, and then there are, I assume it's just cheerleaders or ball girls. They were young women. They would hand the player a giant plush animal or a plush cheeseburger in certain circumstances.
I thought it was like a real cheeseburger.
Yeah.
I was like,
Not a real
slow you down.
Not a real cheeseburger. No, that's what they do with the opposing teams.
Okay.
Good swing.
Yeah.
Here you go, Jose. That was weird.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Rare follow-up question. This is not typical of Caught in a Pickle.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
We're breaking the
We are
pickle rules.
breaking the out of the base paths.
Oh, God.
Let's call it that.
Interference.
Are there any aspects of Japanese baseball that you would add to American baseball?
Yes, the plush cheeseburgers. Wouldn't it be great if Chris Davis hit a home run, came back, and got a giant teddy bear? That'd be amazing.
The size of him.
Yeah, I'm all for it.
That'd be awesome.
Go
ahead, Bob.
Right, well,
I broke the rule, so we're off the rails now
off
at
the
this
rail.
point. Yep.
We've really pickled. The hosts have been pickled.
We've pickled.
Your favorite baseball team growing up, since you've called many baseball games?
Growing up, Yankees.
Yankees. New York.
Don't
guy.
kill me.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
from
fine.
New York.
That's fair.
If you're from New York, that's fine.
obviously fairly new to the entire Orioles organization, but if you had to do an Orioles Mount Rushmore, who would be the 4 guys?
Me, you.
The 3 of us, and I don't know, Brooks.
Boy, oh boy, that's a really good question. Brooks has to be there. Cal has to be there. Palmer has to be there. And I will say, with no disrespect to Eddie, it's got to be either Frank or Earl. And I'm just going to go with players. And this one I'm going to go Frank because of the impact that he had bringing the World Championship here.
Yeah, that's a good call.
We just saw Adley Rutschman introduced for the first time.
Yes.
Will Adley make it? And Mike Elias said that he's going to start at Gulf Coast League and then probably head up to Aberdeen. Will Adley Rutschman make it to Delmarva to help with their playoff run?
Yeah, I think so. I'm bullish on Adley because of the way Mike Elias speaks about his defensive play and his advanced handling of a pitching staff, his advanced work as a catcher. I don't think he'll have to stay very long in some of those lower levels because of the way he catches. I think it's just a matter of, will the bat play?
Right.
I think the bat plays well enough as a 3-year college player. So I'm saying yes, he'll be in Delmarva.
I agree.
This is probably the hardest question of all. Who is going to be the Orioles opening day starter in 2020? I don't even know where to begin on this one.
The Orioles opening day starter in 2020.
Yeah. That also sounds so far away, but just next year.
Why not John Means? The season he's had.
Good call.
Why not John Means? He's going to be here next year. I think he's on his way to deserving that. We don't know if some of the veteran players are going to be here next year.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm bullish on John Means.
If all goes well. Yeah. All right.
Or it could be an opener.
Could be an opener.
Jimmy Yacobonis in front of John Means.
Obviously, this is your first year covering the Orioles, first year in Baltimore.
Yes.
When you first got here on Twitter at Kevin N. Brown, you were looking for food recommendations, restaurants around the area. What was your favorite so far?
My favorite restaurant that I've been to so far in the city, boy, I don't want to just single out one, but I will since you asked the question. There's a place called Spoon's Cafe in Fed Hill.
Great place.
That has outrageous maple, I think there's like cinnamon roll pancakes with a maple glaze. You know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly
Incredible.
what you're talking about.
I love breakfast food, and I'm usually here for dinner time.
Right.
So I don't get to eat dinner out often. So I kind of gravitate toward breakfast places.
Are you both
Spoon's is
sweet tooth?
incredible. I'm a
Paul
sweet
has
tooth.
a huge sweet tooth.
I'm a sweet tooth breakfast guy.
Yeah.
I also went today to a place called either Jack and Zach Food or Zach and Jack Food. It's
Have not heard of
downtown, and it's a place with 12 diner-style seats.
Ooh.
And they make everything in-house, or they get it from a locally sourced farm. And I had an outrageous sausage, egg, and cheese sandwich.
Wow.
Dang.
Locally made, or I think in-house made sausage patty with like some sweetness and some spice, and that was incredible.
Have you ever been to Miss Shirley's?
I have been to Miss Shirley's. Love Miss Shirley's. Have
Great
a chicken
place.
sandwich. Big fan of that.
Yep.
Have a group coming down this weekend for brunch. We'll be going to Miss Shirley's.
Good call.
Nice.
Always a
Saturday
great
morning.
place to take friends, relatives.
Yes.
Good idea.
So
Visitors.
yeah, breakfast spots.
We're sponsored by... No, we're not. Final question here.
And Sobo Cafe in Fed Hill.
Oh,
has
yes.
been amazing for lunch.
Yes. Final question here. Also,
And I
food
will
related.
take the free meal. Thank you.
Crab pretzel or crab fries when you're going around getting food at Opassi?
I have to admit I've not had a crab pretzel.
Really?
Yeah.
It's
Almost
so
end of June,
good.
Kevin.
So good.
Gotta get out there.
Why didn't anybody tell me about this?
Crab pretzel, crab fries.
I'm
Why didn't you
surprised
guys
you
talk
haven't.
about
I'm
this?
surprised
crab
you haven't
mac and
gotten it
cheese
on
hot
Twitter.
dog.
I mean, crab
We got
fries
both.
great.
Yeah.
I'm sure
Yeah.
crab pretzel is excellent too. I just haven't had it.
Have you had actual crabs, like
Pick the crab.
hot,
Steamed.
steamed,
I've had
Old
crab
Bay
cakes,
covered?
but I've not had actual crabs.
Oh, you got to go for that.
Gotta
Yeah.
go pick a crab.
Yeah.
It's a fun experience. It's a
It is.
social experience.
Where are we going? Are we picking it out of the bay?
You can go to Nick's.
Nick's Fish House.
We just
Yeah,
go into
okay.
the water and just.
Yeah. Old
Yep,
fashioned.
exactly. Got to
Steam
kill it yourself. That's
Yep.
the fun part.
Steam it in a pot.
Yeah.
That's the only way food tastes good.
Exactly. Kevin
Very
Brown.
Ron Swanson thing to say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kill the meat yourself.
Exactly. You have been tagged out, called safe. However, we want to end this.
Those are
segment.
completely different things.
They are very different.
So
things.
pick one.
So you're done both.
Yeah, I am in a pickle myself in
Yeah.
terms of picking these. So thank you for being in a pickle with
Thank
us
you.
on the MASN All Access podcast.